welcome back to the next section of this talk. So in this section I just wanted to talk about how my work journey and my work experience sort of affected my anxiety and my health, and how I kind of got to this sort of state that I'm at now with the Functional Tics Disorder. So I was working part-time because I had to look after my aunt who had leukemia at the time, and she had quite a lot of appointments during the weeks, and you know, with these appointments you have to be there all day, like literally from like 9 till 5. It was like a 9 to 5 type job. In 2020 my aunt passed away, and that was kind of my job. My job was taking care of her, and I'd stopped my old job because I was balancing the two, looking after my aunt and working before, but it was just getting a bit difficult because her appointments became more often during the weeks and I couldn't balance it anymore. It was just so much pressure, so much stress. So I stopped working to look after her full time, and then sadly she passed away in February 2020. And then I went back to work. I went back to work too early, I think, because I hadn't dealt with what had just happened. It happened so fast, like, you know, I didn't see it coming, to be honest. I didn't see my aunt's passing coming, and it just happened so fast. And you know, I went back to work. I thought I was ready. Life needed to carry on and everything. It was just a really daunting experience. Like, I remember, like, I would just get triggers and hear a song or something, and I would start crying, but I had to be like professionals at work. I remember the tics sort of, like, obviously as I was looking after my aunt from 2018, I would have like light tics, but it wasn't like anything that was alarming. And you know, my family would just mention it and we just sort of laugh about it, like, oh, you keep doing that lately. I won't really say where I was working, but I wasn't really enjoying it. It was just really difficult, of like crying at work, and yeah, it was just really stressful. And then my dad's friend, she came. She was like, she works in this private hospital and it's really, really nice, and she thinks I'd love working there. They're taking people in, you should just maybe try it and see if you like the environment and see where you can go and find your way in there. And I just said, well, I'm not happy here, so I applied and I got the job in London. I won't say which hospital it was, but yeah, I would get off at London Bridge and they had like 3 locations. Yeah, so sometimes I'd have to work at different locations, like sometimes 2 a day, just because it was really short-staffed and really busy, especially during like the COVID time and stuff like that. And the journey there was not easy at all. It was quite a stressful journey getting into London, as I don't live in London, I live outside of London. So I'd get on the train, and obviously it was very nerve-wracking getting on the train at the time in 2020, 2021. But then I thought, at the time when I first began, I thought, oh, it's worth it because everybody's so nice, and the job is quite well. Well, yeah, that was like in the beginning. Everybody was nice and stuff like that, but it's just some of the patients you deal with, because they all come from very like affluent backgrounds, and it's quite a popular hospital in London, I guess. I don't know if popular is the right word, but yeah, some people are really, really nice. I'm not saying everybody was like entitled and rude and everything, but the majority of them were, and I feel like the majority of them do discriminate against workers, you know, just because like some of them are like millionaires or just really rich and stuff like that. Nonetheless, it was a great place to work. Like, the staff were amazing, like the people I worked with. The day that things changed for me was what sort of triggered my anxiety, and I guess really triggered like the tics to get worse, was in December 2021. That's when things started to go really bad. Obviously the type of clients or patients you meet at this hospital, they come from all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them are quite emotionally abusive. They say like really horrible stuff, but you just have to remain professional, and it's work at the end of the day. And I get that, but when I was on shift once and one of my colleagues was having a dispute with this lady, she was accusing my colleague of trying to steal her money, but she didn't realise she wasn't putting in her PIN number fully, because every PIN number has like 4 digits. She kept putting in 3, so the machine would time out and then it would cancel the transaction because she wasn't doing it fast enough. So she just kind of got angry and accused my colleague of trying to steal her money, but that wasn't the case. When it came to paying for her treatments, she wasn't listening to my colleague. My colleague, I know her, and she's not that kind of person, and you can't really do that anyway. You wouldn't be able to do that and get away with it at the hospital. So things escalated really, really badly. It was a massive scene. It was a really busy, stressful day, and it was just not necessary, to be honest. And my colleague went out to get some fresh air and like have a breather, because she got really emotional. I mean, anybody would be if somebody was speaking to you so horribly and saying horrible things to you and accusing you of stealing in front of it was quite a busy day, and there was people around as well and other work colleagues as well. So it just wasn't a very nice environment, and I was like next to her. So she left, and then this woman was just in the hospital, just, I don't even know. I was just trying to get on with my work and get things done. It was, like I said, it was such a busy day, and she came to my window because she was wondering where my colleague had gone, and our manager was coming as well to kind of try and de-escalate the situation, but she was at another location. It took some time for her to come, so in the meantime she kept talking to me, and I was just trying to be polite and stay neutral and respect her as a patient. And then she had no mask on, I have to say, at this point in time. So what she did was she kept coming to talk to me, and I couldn't hear her because we had these glass things to sort of protect us from patients, because we saw a lot of people every day. And so I had my mask on, so I had to take it off because she came really close, and I had to tell her speak up, I can't hear what you're saying. And then in the glass there's a gap at the bottom, so I was trying to listen to what she was saying, and then she had the audacity to cough on me without my mask on. She deliberately coughed on me, and she looked at me and she was just sort of I hope you get COVID. And she just sniggered a little bit, and at the time I just really didn't process what just happened. It was just because it was such a busy day, and I was just so shocked and so disgusted as well, and I just couldn't believe somebody would do that. And then so yeah, that's when things kind of started to go downhill for me. What she did just really disgusted me, because I'm not a clean freak, I'm not a OCD person, but I just don't think anybody deserves this. The next day I did start reporting it, and it was my manager was fine, but the manager above her, I just wasn't really happy with how she handled things. There was an investigation and a report done. I felt really supported by my own staff and colleagues. It was the final report, I just kind of felt like I was being blamed, because it just kind of said stuff about me, how I should have reported it in real time or something. But I was just how could I have done that when it was so busy? There was a lot of discrimination against class, I guess, as people some of these patients, you know, are like really rich millionaires, all this and that, and you know, they just sort of have that attitude where they just sort of look down on you, I guess. But it, you know, it was what it was. You kind of intentionally hoped for me to die just because you were angry with my colleague, and I was just thinking, like, why would you do that? Why would you treat somebody like that? So that wasn't a very nice experience, and that kind of triggered me. Like, it was just really hard to go into work and to interact with people because I just wasn't happy with how the situation was handled, and then in my head the situation kept playing back, and it just sort of caused my anxiety to get worse because I was thinking, oh, I don't want to work here anymore. Like, what if somebody else coughs at me? I would get anxious if people came close to me, and like, it was just really daunting. And I started really thinking about what she said more and more and more, and I was thinking, you know, that's kind of like wishing somebody to die, because it was just such a disgusting thing to have done to you, and I would never do that to anybody else. It's just kind of like traumatizing because I was really scared, like, and the hospital did like all the tests on me, COVID and stuff like that, and luckily I didn't get it, but it was just like not knowing if she did have it or not, and like, why would she do that? And the summary of the report, it just made me realize, like, you know, companies like this, like, they don't really sort of care in a way. Like, you know, if I died the next day, like, all my family would get is like a card and some flowers, and you know what good is that? So I made the decision to change jobs, move closer to home, less hustle and stress of traveling, and you know, nicer people, and things like that. Or so I thought. I then managed to get a job closer to home, where I thought people would be nicer and just a more positive environment, and yeah, just I just needed a fresh new start. And to be honest, when I left the job in London and I had the break from before I started my new job, like, I noticed that, like, I wasn't having tic attacks as often anymore, and they were still happening, but they kind of calmed down, because it was like when I would come home after a really stressful day, and just the journey and everything would take a toll on me mentally. I would get home and I would have like massive tic attacks, and they were getting bigger and bigger and worse. Obviously that's when we called the GP again, because it was just getting out of hand now. So yeah, so I started this new job. Things were okay for like the first few days, and this is what really, I guess, set me over the edge. In my first 3 weeks, I had 3 racist and discriminatory accounts with members of staff. I'd never experienced this in my life. I have worked in other areas where I've been the only person of colour, the only black woman there, and it's only been like white people, and my colour, my name, who I am, has never been an issue. Like, I just had a normal greeting, and we just got on as people, and we had a great relationship and worked well together and had fun. Like, we just got to know each other as people. There was no mention of like the kind of things I experienced here. So in the side of the office that I worked, apparently, because I got there when some people were working from home and stuff like that, so I didn't know everybody. Obviously, the only other person of colour was my manager, who was a very beautiful woman, but we're so different. Like, she's tall and I'm short, and she has like really curly hair, and my hair is like, you know, short, and yeah, like just typical black woman hair, and hers is like really long as well, so we literally look so different. Yeah, I had an interaction with a woman, and she was like She didn't know if she should say hi to me or not, because she didn't know if I was that other lady or not, the only other woman of colour on that side of the office. So I found this very, very strange, because I was just like, we look so different. And yeah, I understand there is research that says other races really do struggle to differentiate like other races. It takes them a while, but me and this woman, we are so different. Like, she is lighter than me, taller than me, her hair is different to mine. So yeah, I was just a bit uncomfortable with that whole interaction. And these are all first interactions with these people in this office, so this is setting the tone and the mood for me of what this workplace is like. And it just wasn't a very good first impression. So I'm there thinking, okay, so I'm black, like, I know I'm black, but I've been made to feel like, oh, you're like a black person in a place full of like white people. And obviously that makes me feel very uncomfortable, because I've never had that before. I've always worked with people, and we just got on as people. I didn't really know what to take from that, because I had to go home and really process it. It was like the second thing that had happened. The first thing, I don't really remember, like some lady just asked me about my name, where I was from, and just made some weird remarks about my name and stuff like that as well. And yeah, I found that very uncomfortable, and this is the first time I'm meeting people up in this office as well. I've just come from a really stressful situation at my old job where I was discriminated against as well. I'm coming here for a fresh new start. When I had the break, like, anxiety and the depression and the tics had all kind of calmed down, and like I wasn't expecting this in like the area that I live, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a very like sort of, up to date, up with the times. It's 2022, like we should not be having these conversations type place. And so I was just really like, something's, I don't know, I just felt really uncomfortable in the office. And like, it's like an open office, so other people can hear like these conversations happening. But the next day after I had that interaction, I went to say goodbye, because I was leaving work early, to this lady who I'd met, and we were just friendly, getting on. So I went to say goodbye to her, but there was another lady who I'd not met yet, and she just sort of joined in our conversation. And this was my first time meeting her as well. And then she looked at my name and she was like, "Oh, Leanne, your name?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Do you come from a French colonized country?" And I was like, I didn't really know how to answer that, because I'd never been asked that question before. This question doesn't seem normal, doesn't seem right. Why would you ask me something like that? Like, and I was just like, no, like, my name is just Leanne, like, and no, there was no French colony in my country. And she wouldn't let it go. She was just like, no way, Leanne is like a name like a black person would know or have. And then I was just getting really uncomfortable with the conversation, and the lady who I was talking to is also like white. She was getting uncomfortable. I could see she just kind of like turned and withdrew from the conversation as well. And I don't know, I just started to get really anxious. I didn't know how to react or how to answer this woman, because she was so loud, and it's like an open office. And like, it's really rude to just ask somebody, you don't know me, you don't know my history, and you could be bringing up traumatic experiences from me, like, hello. And it's not like you'd go to a Jewish person, for example, and say, for example, you wouldn't ask them, if you heard a certain name, do you come from like a certain camp or something from the Holocaust or something like that. That's just really disrespectful, really rude, and just really inappropriate to ask. So I was like thinking, why is she asking me this? And then she carried on to like insult my family. She just insinuated that, well, if we weren't from a French colonized country, my parents, there's no way they would know like this name. They must have like read it from somewhere, like a book written by like a white person or some French person or something. And yeah, that's the only way like they would have known this name or whatever. Like, fair enough, people read names from books, but considering how the conversation started, I just found that really disrespectful to me, my name, my family, where I come from and everything. And yeah, I had to remove myself from the situation. I went home and I was just feeling really, really stressed and confused about all these interactions I was having in this workplace. I had to really, really think about it. I talked about it with my mom, I talked about it with my friends, and everybody was just like, yeah, that's not on, like, that's really disrespectful. And I didn't know if everybody was like this, if this was like the culture in the workplace. Not everybody was like that, thank God. Like, there were some really, really lovely people, but I didn't work with them all the time. Where I was mainly based, when I would meet new people, like everything would just sort of play in my head at night, and like I'd just get really anxious and uncomfortable, and I got low and I didn't want to wake up anymore and go to work. And it was like the job itself was so stressful. It wasn't so stressful, but I think I was starting to sort of deteriorate mentally, because I'd been made to feel out of place, and it was just a horrible experience. I just got so anxious. I was so tense at work all the time. If people were looking at me, I was like, oh, are they going to say something inappropriate to me? Are they looking at me because I'm black? And it was just not a nice working environment. It was really upsetting. So I made a formal complaint and went through like an investigation, but just going through everything again over and over again, it was just really, really difficult for me, because obviously at the time I didn't know I had functional tics disorder. I just knew something was wrong with me and it was getting worse. Because when I would come home, I would have massive tic attacks and I just could not control it anymore, and it was just really, really draining and like traumatizing to experience that every day after work. Going to work, waking up, it just started to feel so heavy. I just couldn't handle it. These things are just in my head playing over and over and over again, and I'm just getting anxious meeting new people. I started to like withdraw from people, and then I was worried I'm new there and people might think I'm being rude or something if I'm not interacting with them or saying hello. I just didn't know what was going on. It was just so overwhelming. During the investigation, it was just taking so long and taking a toll on me mentally, because at the time I didn't understand what was going on with me and my health as well, and it was just getting really scary, because it was literally like every day after work I just started to have major brain fog, and I was making mistakes at work and I couldn't do that because also it was like sensitive information we were working with, so it was affecting everything. Just sort of spiraled out of control for me. I made a formal complaint to try and find out if this is the culture, just in case it was, so that nothing like that ever happened to anybody else who looks like me, like for them to never experience anything like that. It's really not nice. I'm dealing with mental health issues, and now I have to deal with like racism and discrimination as well, and then that really took a toll on me and just made the tics so much worse, and I couldn't cope with work anymore. My parents could just see how miserable I was and just how drained I was from it all, and it was just a really, really difficult time. The woman coughing on me and just being scared to be around people. I don't know, it was just like a lot for me to take on this year, and I needed a break. I needed to slow down from everything, and I couldn't even finish the investigation because I just thought, this is not important to me anymore. Like, my health is deteriorating. I need to put myself first. I need to focus on myself first. I need to prioritize myself first. Like, I tried my best. I tried to stand up for myself. I tried to stand my ground. The stress is just too much. It was just too much. So I had to put me first and choose myself. It's just really hard to process what's been going on this year and everything. And it's difficult for me to be around people. I've got no control of my body. I just feel like I've got no control of my life at the moment, and I'm just trying to like get through this phase.